Absolutely. Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction. Yes, my name is Sarah, and I run a functional nutrition practice here. I work a ton with women's health in particular, but work with sort of women and men of all ages and levels of life. But I work a lot with the interaction of food and hormones and just really how to support our optimal functioning of our body through the therapy of food and lifestyle and nutrients and supplementation and movement and stress reduction and cleaning up our environments, et cetera, et cetera. So it's exciting for me to be here. And this is totally like up my alley in terms of embracing and learning how to incorporate the power of clean food and eating clean food and how do we do it and how do we make it so that it's not a like short-term fix and it's not a diet that we're on or off, but it's actually like learning how to incorporate sustainable shifts and changes into our life so that we nourish our bodies day in and day out. And it's never not never, but it becomes more of just redirecting our relationship with food and redirecting how we think about nourishing our bodies versus I'm going to do this, but it's never sustainable. And so I can only stick with it for a few weeks, maybe a month, but then I somehow always go back to like my old patterns of eating and sleeping and living that aren't really nourishing for us. So today I just really wanted to talk about what I sort of consider my like top tips and tricks and trades and principles for embracing the power of clean food and embracing the power of how to incorporate this into our life in a really sustainable way, especially as all of you transition in these next few days into the phase 2. And it's not just milk that you're consuming, but learning how to start eating, food again, and yet really keeping this amazing way that hopefully you all are feeling in terms of a clear head and a optimized immune system and balanced hormones and sleeping better and your skin looks better, your mood is more stable, your energy levels are higher. How do we continue that after getting off just doing milk? So that's where I want to kind of go today. And so what I consider, I'm going to kind of run through what I consider my like embracing the power of clean food top principles. And then we can dive in more specifically. So one is eat real food. 2, choose organic. 3, really eliminating refined grains, particularly gluten, and our highly, highly inflammatory foods like sugar and vegetable oils and industrial seed oils, non-organic meat and dairy products, not dairy, but non-organic dairy products, really finding a better relationship with caffeine, limiting packaged, processed, refined, fried, sort of Franken foods, water, cleaning up our environment, cleaning out our pantry, and shifting out of this like restrictive dieting mindset and more into eating for nourishment. So that's where we're going to go today. That's an overview, and then let's dive in. So first and foremost, eat real food. So I always tell clients in my practice, it's thinking about if my great grandmother or if your great grandmother would not have recognized what it is you're about to put in your mouth as food, don't eat it. Put it back because it's not really food and our bodies don't really know what to do with it. So we think about, good, clean, local, fresh, whole food from the earth that most of the time you cook and prepare yourself so that you know what's going into it, where it was sourced, where it came from, etc. When we talk or think about all of the constituents of the body, the hormones, the tissues, the cells, the organs, they need the constituents of real whole food. That's all that they recognize. Most of the food that a lot of people are eating in our like day-to-day modern culture, the body literally doesn't even recognize it as food and it doesn't know what to do with it. So if the body doesn't know what to do with it, where it dumps it is into our fat cells. And the reason that the body does this is it's a protective mechanism to protect our vital organs, i.e., liver, kidney, heart, brain, adrenals, reproductive organs, from damage. So the body like shuttles all these toxins and sort of like frankenfoods that it doesn't really know what to do with into our fat cells as a protective mechanism, but then there they sit. And so, and the liver is also in charge of processing these toxins out, which I know, you guys have been learning a lot about through this cleanse, is how to support these detoxification pathways. And the more that we can just eat real food, like legitimately as simple as that, would my great grandmother recognize this? Yes. Apple, cool. Cucumber, yes. Egg, great. One ingredient foods, the body knows exactly what to do with it. We don't clog up our detox pathways. We don't shuttle toxins into our fat cells. It's really easy to maintain our weight and our energy and our skin and our mood and our, sleep, etc. Because everything is just functioning really easily and seamlessly, because the body knows what you're feeding it. 2, choose organic. So, I get this question in my practice all the time, which is, what's the scoop with organic? Like, do I really need to spend the extra money on it? Is it just a buzzword? Does it even mean anything? And I always say, unfortunately, in our modern day, we live in a world where, yes, organic absolutely 100% for sure means something and is important. We used to live in a world where, we didn't spray massive amounts of chemicals on our food that literally like eat the paint off of your car and make animals super fat and ready to go to butcher, in months. So we lived in a world where that wasn't of concern. Everything was organic, right? Now we live in a world where that's just not the reality. And so choosing foods that are grown without pesticides, insecticides, fungicides, that are not genetically modified, eating animal foods that have not been pumped with hormones and, injected with steroids and antibiotics is important. It's super important, because that toxic buildup day in and day out, every meal, every snack, every time you're eating, is exactly what, these last 7 days have worked on, and what these next few weeks will work on is like really, really, really alleviating the body from having to deal with this massive amount of toxic input that just comes from living in our modern world. So choosing organic is super important. If you're eating animal foods, looking for grass-fed, grass-finished, pasture-raised, go to your local farmers market. There's a great website that I love to use called eatwild.com. And you literally put your zip code in and it brings up this huge list of local farms within, you can set the precedent, is it 25 miles, within the 50 miles, and it lists all the farms, the local farms in your area and exactly what they offer. Do they offer eggs? Do they offer raw milk? Do they offer pasture-raised chicken or grass-fed bison or grass-fed beef? Pork, etc. So that's an amazing way to not only support our local farmers, which is super critical if we're going to really shift and change our food system. We got to support the local farmers. And 2, now you know where your food comes from. You know how it was raised. You can talk to the farmer who fed that animal its feed and took it to butcher, etc. Which now we're like really getting to the source of our food, which is so important. Going to the farmer's market and shopping for your fruits and your veggies and your herbs and your spices, etc. And sometimes you'll be at a farmer's market and the farmer says like, I'm not certified organic because, a little tiny small local farm operation can't afford the actual USDA organic label. But if you're talking to the farmer and they're not spraying their crops, which, most likely they're not, because that's an additional expense for them. They don't need to do that. They don't want to do that. They want to work with the land and work with agriculture to do regenerative agriculture on their farm. But that's how we choose organic, shop local. And of course, if you don't have a farmer's market or if that's not in your like capacity right now, that's okay too. There's lots of local health food stores, or even, the larger health food stores like Whole Foods and Sprouts, Natural Grocers. Those are great. Seek out organic still. I think a lot of times there's a misunderstanding that when we walk into something like Whole Foods or Sprouts, that everything's organic, everything's clean. And unfortunately, that's not the case either. So really, like, read your labels. Make sure that it actually is an organic banana and not a conventional, or that the meat really is organic, grass-fed, grass-finished. I always say that if cost is of concern, focus on your animal foods first and foremost as your priority for, like, the highest quality you can afford. Animal foods accumulate much more toxicity than plant foods do. So if it's a cost thing, that's legit and real for a lot of people, and that's totally warranted. So make sure that all your animal foods are of the highest quality first and foremost, and then your plant foods. The Environmental Working Group has an awesome resource that they put out every year that's called the Dirty Dozen List. And it's the 12 most heavily pesticide or chemical sprayed fruits and veggies. So at least focus on those ones, maybe buying organic. And then they have a list that they call the Clean 15, which are the top 15 foods that aren't heavily sprayed. That's where you can fudge a little bit and buy conventional. You don't necessarily need to buy organic. So that's an awesome website or resource. I'm sorry, the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15, when we're trying to figure out, like, what's most important to buy organic. So next is, how do we, or not how, but really focusing on eliminating, or really at least reducing, our intake of the top inflammatory foods. The foods that really, unfortunately, wreak the most havoc on hormones, on brain health, on sleep quality, on cardiovascular health and our immune system and skin, etc. So in my opinion, and I would think that a lot of functional medicine practitioners would agree here, is gluten. So gluten is a highly, highly inflammatory food. The way that we consume gluten today is entirely different than the way that humans have ever consumed gluten grains. So today, most of the wheat, rye, oats are not technically gluten, but they're processed this in a lot of the same facilities that gluten is processed, and they're grown in a lot of the same fields. And so I always say, if you're going to do oats, really make sure that they're gluten-free certified. But anyways, a lot of our gluten grains are genetically modified. They're hugely genetically modified, and then they're sprayed with a ton of chemicals like Roundup to prevent pests from eating the crop. And then on top of that, there's a lot of additional, like, insecticides and fungicides. So the grains in and of themselves don't look like they used to. And then the way that we actually prepare our bread products, i.e. bread, pasta, crackers, cereal, English muffins, pretzels, baked goods, cookies, cakes, desserts, also don't look like we used to. It used to take 3 to 4 days to bake a loaf of bread. Properly ferment the grains with a good sourdough starter, let it sit on your countertop 3-4 days, then bake it. That's how our grandmothers used to do it, our great grandmothers. Maybe not our grandmothers, our great grandmothers. Or anyways, now we bake bread in 30 minutes. And so our digestive systems as humans literally are just not equipped to break down these super complex carbohydrates in that form. So reducing gluten, big time, reducing all the foods that contain these highly refined gluten grains. Sugar in and of itself, this is not something new probably for most people, is the need to reduce our sugar intake, but it can't be overstated. When we eat literally a teaspoon of sugar, it essentially paralyzes, or like puts our immune system to sleep for 4 hours. So if we think about this intake, like chronic, constant intake of sugar in many forms, this can be like your breakfast cereal in the morning, and then you have a little like energy bar that you think is healthy for a snack that's full of 4 different kinds of sugar. And then for lunch, you've got some pasta with a piece of bread, followed by a cookie. And then in the afternoon, you have a bag of pretzels. And then for dinner, you've got a hamburger on a bun with French fries. This like level of sugar is pretty constant and consistent in most people's diet. And our poor immune systems are like basically just obliterated. So, really looking at where you might be getting sugar in your diet that you're not even aware of. Even if you're like, I don't eat cookies and candy and cakes and cupcakes, but again, I have cereal for breakfast and, a sandwich for lunch and maybe some pasta for dinner. That's a lot of sugar, actually. All those grains turn into sugar in the body. So a lot of inflammation, a lot of immune suppression, and just kind of being on that blood sugar roller coaster all day long, which most people are on and feel horrible. Energy spikes, energy plummets. So then we look for our next pick me up. Energy spikes, energy plummets. Where's my next pick me up? It's exhausting. It's exhausting for the adrenals. It's exhausting for the immune system. And it leaves most people worn out, tired, but wired, no energy, but can't sleep at night, sort of on this roller coaster. The last big inflammatory food that I always highlight for my clients that I think is really important, that is often overlooked, is vegetable oils. So these man-made, synthetic, industrial vegetable oils, things like canola oil, soybean oil, cottonseed, corn oil, sunflower, safflower. These are highly refined, highly damaged, rancid oils. By the time that they're sitting on a grocery store shelf or sitting in products on a grocery store shelf, they're unstable fats. So they don't have stability to sit on a grocery store shelf, which means they have to go through a lot of refining and processing and oxidation to get them so-called stable, to be in pretzels and salad dressings and baked goods and breads, and or just like your bottle of canola oil that you cook with, because it's more heart healthy than grass-fed butter or coconut oil, or these good, clean, real oils that we've been legitimately told to stay away from. And actually, it's quite the opposite. These really refined polyunsaturated vegetable oils are super, super inflammatory. They're really, really damaging to the cells. Our cells, every single cell in our body is surrounded by a fat membrane. And so the quality and the type of fat that you eat in your diet is exactly what your body is going to use to make your cells. So if we're eating damaged, toxic, rancid fats from things like canola oil and soybean oil and corn oil, that's what the body's going to use and incorporate into your cellular membrane. And all of a sudden, your little fat cellular membrane is like hard and sticky, and waste cannot get out and nutrients can't get in, versus eating good, clean, quality oils like grass-fed ghee, grass-fed butter, good coconut oil, super clean, 100% pure olive oil, avocado oils. These oils are fluid and the cell membrane is like nice and happy. Nutrients can come in and waste can get excreted, etc. So, looking at, I always like tell clients, like, go into your pantry, go into your fridge, and legitimately like start turning the label, or looking at the ingredient label and see, does it contain canola oil? Is there soybean oil listed? You'll be amazed at how food manufacturers sneak these industrial oils in to like so many things. Like 90% of packaged processed foods contain these oils. Excuse me. In addition to things we already talked about, like sugar. So again, really looking at the types and the qualities of the oils that you're eating will make a massive difference in the functioning of your brain, the functioning of your hormones, which are all made from fat. Your hormones are literally made from cholesterol, is the mother hormone, and she turns into all of our various reproductive hormones, adrenal hormones, etc. So really looking at the quality of our fats is key. Um, and then we talked a little bit about this in terms of the organic section, but I wanted to just re-highlight, obviously you guys have been drinking milk, which is amazing. And I know that in the milk cleanse, we talk a lot about the importance of the quality of the dairy. So again, as we continue on from getting off of just milk and utilizing dairy products in your diet, making sure that you really are seeking out the very highest quality of dairy products. Always organic, ideally grass-fed if you can find that in your area. Again, local farms, seeking out good, clean dairy products straight from them. Because just like we talked about with what humans do when we're exposed to toxins or chemicals in our environment or our diet, we store them in our fat cells. Animals do the same thing. So when we're eating high fat animal products, i.e. dairy, we want to be really sure that the animal was not exposed to genetically modified food or insecticide sprayed feed or pumped with any kind of hormones, et cetera, and antibiotics, et cetera, because all of that stuff is then stored in their fat tissue, i.e. where we get full fat milk, full fat butter, full fat cheese, full fat yogurt, et cetera. So that's a biggie, is really making sure that dairy products are good and clean, because that's a high source of hormonal residue and sort of like chemical residue that we often overlook. So that's a biggie. Caffeine. So, caffeine is like our, kind of our, like, what do I always call it? Like our most accepted, like, legal drug in America. And, some caffeine, totally fine. I always say if you're going to do coffee or tea, caffeinated coffee or tea, or decaf, actually, the biggest thing is, again, organic. So coffee and tea are really heavily sprayed crops. They're hard to grow, to be honest. And we attempt to grow coffee and tea in lots of places in the world where they would not naturally grow. And so we have to use a lot of chemical input on them. So if you're doing coffee, make sure it's organic, ideally, shade grown, single origin, like good, clean coffee. I always say, especially if it's something that you do day in and day out, i.e. your cup of coffee in the morning, make sure it's clean, make sure it's super clean, and you'll feel better. Like the quality of the coffee or tea or caffeinated tea that you do makes a huge difference in how you feel if you're going to consume it. And if you're going to consume decaf, even more important for organic, the Swiss water decaf process is really that's what you want to look for. The caffeinated, or the decaffeinated process that they use for decaffeinating coffee and tea is quite chemical intensive. So instead, the Swiss water process just uses hot water. So really looking for that when you're buying decaf coffee beans or decaf tea bags, etc. So going back to the kicking processed foods, packaged foods, refined foods, fried foods. A big thing I always like to help clients with here, and this is something actually that my super amazing, one of my dearest friends in the world, Melissa Levy from the Rebel Remote, always talks about, and I love it, is switch this or eat this for that. Kind of like, instead of doing this, do this. So she makes some great examples that I love to highlight, which is, instead of conventional, loafed white bread or even whole grain 10 million seed bread that's sitting on a grocery store shelf for who knows how long, is get sourdough bread. There's so many amazing, I think something really great that's come out of COVID is the resurgence of sourdough baking, which is awesome. There's so many amazing coffee shops and bakeries, etc., that are really diving into the amazingness of sourdough bread, which is baking bread how we traditionally used to bake it, from good organic heirloom grains that they are freshly milling, and then 3-4 day process of properly fermenting those flours so that it's more digestible and easily for the body to obtain nutrition from. Sourdough bread, awesome, easy switch. If you can't find sourdough bread in your area, another great option, sprouted spelt bread. So that's, in the freezer section of a lot of health food stores. Ezekiel is a bread that a lot of people are familiar with. I actually don't love Ezekiel bread because they literally add wheat gluten. It's like in the ingredient label. So kind of defeats the purpose of sprouting all those awesome grains and then adding wheat gluten. So sprouted spelt bread is a great option. It's in the freezer section, it's loafed, it's sliced, it's super similar to how you would buy your conventional bread. Toast it up, put some good nut butter, avocado, coconut butter, good grass or pasture raised eggs, whatever. But make sure that you've got some good fat and protein with it. But that's an easy, switch this for that kind of thing. Kale chips or plantain chips are yummy, yummy switches if you want that like crunchy, salty chip type thing. Craving, those are easy to find. And, even conventional grocery stores, you can often find kale chips now. Instead of sodas or any like energy Red Bull kind of drinks, like good sparkling water with fresh fruit added or a bunch of lemon and lime added. My favorite carbonated water brand is the Spindrift, which is, pretty easy to find these days. They use like real fresh fruit in their carbonated water instead of any of the natural flavors or other sort of unknown ingredients in a lot of these like carbonated waters. So that's easy switch. Overnight oats instead of cereal. Melissa talks about this, and actually I love overnight oats. And she really turned me on to like a great recipe, getting like good sprouted oats, some good clean, either good organic full fat grass fed milk or non-dairy, like one ingredient type non-dairy milk, like almonds and water, almond milk, coconut cream and water, coconut milk. Just 1-2 ingredients for those non-dairy milks if you're going to do them. Remember that. Some cinnamon, some chia seeds, and let it soak in your fridge all night. And then the next day, you put some good berries, some raw nuts and seeds, scoop of raw nut butter, coconut butter. Easy and delicious instead of like your, boxed, pour it into your cereal bowl kind of morning breakfast. Sweet potato fries, love like good baked sweet potato fries, or even, white potatoes are also like not horrible. A lot of people are like, oh my God, I can't eat white potatoes, but totally fine to like go eat a cookie after lunch. But the white potatoes got too many carbs. White potatoes are from the earth, one ingredient type foods. Organic is key. There's a lot of pesticides sprayed on those like ground root veggies. So white potatoes are a biggie to choose organic. They're on that 30 dozen list, but really easy to use sweet potatoes or white potatoes, yams, and make like easy homemade fries to have with your good, whatever kind of meal you're having. Salad dressings, that's another like switch this for that. Good, easy homemade salad dressings. Clean olive oil, some good clean raw apple cider vinegar, or like one ingredient balsamic vinegar or red wine vinegar. No sugars added, no oils added. Some good high quality mineral sea salt sprinkled in there, maybe some Dijon mustard. And then I don't even like make a salad dressing, in a jar. I literally just pour it right on my salad in the bowl. I feel like people get like sort of intimidated by salad dressings. Like I literally drizzle olive oil, drizzle raw apple cider vinegar, sprinkle some good sea salt, maybe a touch of Dijon mustard, mix it up with my hands, boom, salad ready to go. If you want, some more creativity or like variety, the Primal Kitchen brand is, I think, kind of the one and only, at least that I know of, salad dressing brand that legitimately only uses avocado oil or olive oil, no sugars, no industrial seed oils, etc. And they have a whole line, of lots of our favorite like classic salad dressing. So that's an easy brand to find. Thrive Market is a great resource if you guys don't know about Thrive in terms of ordering pantry products, things like salad dressings and oils and nuts and seeds and all sorts of fill your pantry item type things. It's basically I always explain it's like the whole food options at like Costco wholesale prices. So it's a great, great option. They ship to your door and you can really like stock your kitchen for a much more reasonable price than trying to go and stock your pantry at Whole Foods, for example. Um, Speaking of that, on to our next principle, which is cleaning out your pantry. So this is a biggie. I find that if we are like staring at temptation all day long, you're going to eat it. We're human. We only have like this amount of willpower for this long. So get the stuff out of your pantry, like get the crackers and the cookies and the not great salad dressings and the soda and the box cereals and the white loafed bread and on and on and on. Like really just clean out the pantry. And then you are not staring at your like temptation trigger food all day long, because eventually you're going to eat it. So stock the pantry with good, clean, quality, nourishing foods, clean out the refrigerator, clean out the freezer, and like bring in all the good, amazing, fresh foods so that that's what you have to choose from. And I always say, a really like, in my opinion, I do this at home all the time in our family. And I teach this to clients a lot, or suggest this to clients, which is an easy way to do this is like, okay, pick a day, clean out the pantry, literally like go through everything. Look at the labels. If it's got industrial seed oils, or it's got sugar or gluten, or just, ingredients that a third grader can't pronounce, it's not food. Done, get it out. Or if it's not something that you could like identify, like, oh yeah, I know what that looks like in nature, it's not food. So get rid of it, clean everything out, and then do a whole restock. Restock the pantry, restock the fridge, restock the freezer. And then on a week to week, or however kind of you want to do it, in terms of meal planning, it's like pick a morning where you get out a piece of paper, you sit down and you think about your week. Okay, do we have plans a couple nights? Okay, you can't, figure that in. And then you make your plan of eating for the week, your meal plan, and be realistic. Be realistic. I see some people that are like, okay, I'm going to cook 7 nights a week. I'm going to try 5 new recipes. And that's like, and then they get defeated because that's totally unrealistic. They feel like they failed because they didn't do it. And then they end up, going to Chick-fil-A for dinner. Instead, pick maybe 1, max 2 new recipes to try on a weekly basis. Cater in leftovers, like always make more food than you're going to eat. I always say, like, when you're going to actually cook, make more than you're going to eat. Utilize that time and energy that you're cooking so that you can have leftovers for lunch, or maybe even leftovers in a different, make it look different for dinner the next night, so that you're not cooking every single meal, 3 meals a day, 7 days a week. Like, it's exhausting. And for most people, it's not sustainable or realistic at all. So don't set yourself up for failure. Set yourself up for success by saying, like, okay, I'm going to try 1 new recipe this week. Let's roast a whole chicken. And then the next day we can use some of that chicken for like salad, or put it on our salads for lunch. And then maybe the following night you make a soup. So anyways, really capitalizing on the time and energy that you are cooking, plan for leftovers, and keep your new recipe trying to just a couple a week to make it realistic. And then make sure when you're making your meal plan, I always like half of, I get a piece of paper, half of it I write down my meal plan for the week, and the other half of the paper, your grocery list, right? Because the worst thing is like you're psyched and you're ready, you've got all your what we're going to make this week, and then it's Tuesday night, we're supposed to be having like roast chicken and baked sweet potato fries and a big green salad, and you realize you don't have a half of the ingredients because you forgot to go to the grocery store and get them. So make sure you've got your grocery list, and make sure you've got all the ingredients that you need, and make little reminders in your meal plan. Like if you're gonna, roast a chicken, then on Tuesday night, make sure on Monday you pull the chicken out of the freezer and have it be defrosting in your fridge so it's ready to go. Because I often find that with our best intentions, if we don't plan a little ahead, make sure we've got the ingredients, make sure, the ingredients are like ready to go, then unfortunately we end up eating cereal and toast for dinner instead of this good meal that you had intended on. Um, which brings me to my next point, which is really trying to eat out less, eating out at restaurants less. We live in a world where it's super easy to get takeout food or get delivery or go out to dinner, which is great. And there's always a time and a place for that, for sure. And most of the time, the majority of the time, we should be buying good, clean or ingredients from our grocery stores and bringing them home and cooking in our kitchens and sitting down and having dinners, with friends or with family or whatever it looks like in your life. But really trying to do more of our meal prep and our meal cooking at home is really important, because then the quality of the ingredients, the quality of the oils that was cooked in, you're putting love and intention into the food that you're eating, and your health can only benefit and be reciprocated from that. And then, the last big point that I always like to say is, on that note, is really shifting out of this like dieting, limiting mindset and more into a mindset of nourishment and like eating for nourishment, and how can we redirect and look at our relationship with food and relationship with the way that we live our lives and the way that we eat and the way that we sleep and the way that we have relationships in our life into a mindset of nourishment instead of a mindset of deficit or a mindset of limiting or dieting. Because this life is meant to be treasured, and this life is meant to be pleasurable. And so oftentimes I find when we talk about food and we talk about shifting our, how we're eating, it can get really like limited. It can get really like, I can't eat that, or good foods and bad foods. And it's more like, there's no inherently good or bad food. It's just many foods are more nourishing and more ideal for the body than others. And so just really shifting into that mindset of, how does this food make me feel, and trying to focus on eating foods that help us feel better, especially coming off this really amazing intensive deep dive cleanse. You want to keep feeling good. And so the more that you can really bring in all of these good, high quality, nutrient dense foods on a day-to-day basis, the easier it's going to be to sustain this like awesome way of feeling coming off the cleanse. So I want to make sure that we've got some time for questions. So if there are questions, you can pop them over into the chat. Okay, we've got some over here. Awesome. And also, I'm not sure if people are muted or not, but if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, then do that. So let me pop over here in the chats and see if I can answer some questions here. The Note Meals, NOATMEALS.com. I don't know that, but like awesome. And once we pop off of this call, I can't wait to check that out. But that looks amazing. And again, I think the great thing about living in 2021 is there are so many amazing brands now that are like so innovative in terms of their creation of good quality food made for like the modern consumer, that's quick and easy, but like really clean, simple ingredient labels, easy to prepare, easy to source, which is awesome. Like we've never lived in a time of so much like amazing accessibility. And salad dressings. Yes, so pragmatic, totally, like just right in the bowl, like no need to take extra time to make a salad dressing. I would never do that. I wouldn't eat salads with good dressings if I was thinking I was going to make a whole salad dressing ahead of time. Primal Kitchen, yes, that's the brand of salad dressings that you can find. I mean, really, Whole Foods for sure, your local health food store definitely, and Thrive Market, like we talked about, you can get a lot of these really amazing brands. Is coconut oil good? Definitely. I love coconut oil. I feel like so many things, coconut oil has kind of gotten a good reputation and a bad reputation. And people are like, I don't know, am I supposed to eat it? Again, I always just like intuitively think about it. Humans, there are like large sectors of humans living in many places of this earth that have been surviving and subsisting on coconut as like one of their primary food sources for a very, very, very long time. It is a real food that has like literally sustained entire cultures. Um, so it's an amazing food. It's chock full of good quality fats, antimicrobial agents. It's amazing for the immune system. It's amazing for the thyroid gland. I mean, it's an incredible fat. It's saturated, so it's got a high heat stability. Saturated fats like grass-fed oil or grass-fed butter, grass-fed ghee, coconut oil, these are your cooking fats. They have a high heat stability. They don't get denatured when we heat them. So those are amazing. Cook with those. Save your super clean, expensive, small, dark bottle of high quality olive oil for no cooking. Salad dressings, after food has been cooked, it's on your plate, drizzle with olive oil, but keep your unsaturated oils like olive oil for finishing, not cooking, and your good quality saturated fats for cooking. How do I feel about maple syrup, honey, coconut, sugar as alternative ways to sweeten? Totally love, absolutely. If we're going to consume sugar, which we are, again, like maple syrup and honey have been like revered as like superfoods for a very long time by, again, many traditional cultures. So absolutely. But again, it was hard to get honey. It was hard to go and like tap the maple tree and get the maple syrup. So we're not supposed to be like consuming heaps and heaps of it. It's a treat. It's like a delicacy. So treat it like a delicacy instead of, now we go to the grocery store and we can buy like jugs and jugs of these sweeteners where they used to be like a difficult food to get. So we should still continue to treat them that way. What type of coconut oil? So I always say if you don't, a lot of people actually don't love the taste of coconut oil. So organic refined coconut oil has a very neutral flavor, like no flavor. So it's great if you don't want that like kind of sweet coconut oil flavor. Get the organic refined. Make sure it's organic because the refining process can use a bunch of like solvents and chemicals, etc. In terms of like where more of the nutrients are going to be held is in the raw unrefined coconut oil. So I love the raw unrefined. I can like literally put it on a banana and eat it. But some people don't love that flavor. So again, up to you. More nutritional benefit in the raw unrefined, but if you don't like the flavor, get the organic refined. Totally fine. If we only do a couple of new recipes each week, what would you recommend for the other nights? I have a family, so we need to cook every night. No, thank you. Let me clarify. So I love for sure cook every night. Like family dinners every night is definitely where it's at. I guess, and I should have clarified what I meant by that was a couple new recipes a week. And then, 2 or 3 of the other nights, you go to your like staples. I mean, I know in our family, we have like 10 staples that we kind of like cycle through, and that's fine. The benefit of trying 2 new recipes a week is now all of a sudden you get to like add some new stuff to your 10 kind of like go-tos. So your 10 go-tos shift and change every few weeks where you add some, ooh, I love that recipe. That was super easy and the whole family liked it. Okay, great. That gets to come on to sort of your like run through easy to pull together weeknight meal repertoire. And then leftovers. Like I said, if you're make like a whole roasted chicken and then the next night turn it into a soup, or do 2 roasted chickens so you can have like the first night roasted chicken and baked sweet potato fries and a big green salad, and the next night you've got still a bunch of leftover shredded chicken that you turn into a salad or you turn into a soup, or homemade chicken pot pie or something like that. So just really like capitalize on cooking once and letting those ingredients be used for other meals for at least the next day. How do I feel about things made with almond flour, like the Simple Mills bread mix? I like it much better than buying like a, bleached white flour refined bread. Absolutely. I also think that again, almonds are, when if we were like, the body isn't equipped to like digest a huge amount of nuts and almonds or seeds all at once. Again, almonds, walnuts, pecans, cashews, like nuts and seeds are amazing nutrient dense foods, but they pack a lot of nutrition in their little tiny uh, form. And so better to like eat a handful of real raw almonds or like a spoonful or two of almond butter. Almond flours and things can be great for grain-free baking, but keep it minimal because that's a lot. If you look at like a half a cup of almond flour, that's a ton of almonds. And the digestive system doesn't usually do super awesome with like that huge influx of a bunch of almonds at one time. So again, use it. Almond flour, tiger nut flour, cassava root flour, coconut flour, those are great. But when we're doing a lot of like baked, paleo goods or grain-free cooking or grain-free baking, just keep it minimal. Again, those are still like what I consider should be like treat foods, not day in and day out every day kind of foods. I recently learned coconut water is used in times of war as blood transfusions because of it's a universal donor. Yeah, I don't know that like that's an amazing concept right there. And I don't know that exact concept, but coconut water, which is another reason why coconut products are so amazing. The constituents of coconut water is like almost the exact same as our intracellular fluid, like the fluid that's inside of our bodies, which is so incredible and why it's great in terms of that, like, hydration piece of it. Again, most of the coconut waters are like heated or treated or, sugar added or etc. So just be mindful. But like if you're, in Hawaii and a coconut falls off on the ground and you cut it open with a machete and drink it, it's like literally the exact same constituent makeup of your inside your body fluid, which is pretty amazing. Jessica says, I recently purchased a cookbook from a local Denver brand. It sounds very similar to what we're talking about today. Whole nutritious foods and recipes designed to be used two ways, one meal and how to reuse the leftovers. Yes, Jessica, amazing. That's totally what I'm talking about. So what's it called? The Seasoned Chef. Awesome. So that's a great mix, match, make, take. That's amazing. Jessica, that's totally what I'm talking about. And I knew there would be a cookbook out there that uses this concept because it's brilliant. So again, everyone can check out the chats. Jessica listed that there. So it's great. Nut butters and soaking my nuts. Love nut butters. Again, similar to almond flour. Be mindful. It's way more almonds, in a spoonful or two of almond butter than you would like eat one at a time, So just again, be mindful. Nuts and seeds can be easy to kind of overdo. And then your digestive system is like, oh, that didn't feel great, which leads to the next point that this Johanna said, which is, do I always soak my nuts? I do. At home, in our home at least, I always soak our nuts and seeds. So nuts and seeds, as well as grains, beans, legumes, these are awesome, amazing, nourishing foods. But they do take some preparation, some intentional preparation, which is soaking in good, filtered, clean, warm water. And nuts, you add salt. So again, and I know that my information will be listed here. You guys can always reach out to me if you forget these details. I have a whole handout that I give clients about this, but soaking your nuts and seeds in good, warm, clean, filtered water with salt added, clean, mineral rich, like Himalayan salt, real salt, pink salt, and letting it just soak on your counter for a good 12 hours. That neutralizes the phytic acid, the anti-nutrients, the parts of the nuts and seeds that actually are really hard to digest. So we like essentially start the sprouting process. So you give them a good long 12-hour soak, drain off that soaking water, rinse, rinse, rinse super, super well, and then either dry your nuts and seeds out in your dehydrator if you have one. A lot of people don't, totally cool. Put them in your oven, lowest temperature you can get your oven to go. Let them just slow dry out. It'll almost take like 24 hours, to be honest. So we soak all of our nuts and seeds in our house. And then I store all those soaked nuts and seeds in like big Ziplocs in the freezer, and then little tiny like glass mason jars in the fridge for day-to-day eating. And then for your grains like quinoa or oats or beans, lentils, legumes, same hot, clean, filtered water soaking. And then you either just squeeze a whole fresh lemon in there or some raw apple cider vinegar, a couple swigs. Again, let it soak long and slow on your countertop all day or overnight. And then drain off that soaking water, rinse, 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 and then cook it up on your stovetop or your Instapot or your crock pot, however you usually cook up your dried beans. But that's essentially like the sprouting process, the beginning of it. You can also, like, I know Thrive Market sells sprouted almonds, sprouted walnuts, sprouted pecans, sprouted quinoa, sprouted lentils. So again, if you know you don't have the like bandwidth to do soaking and sprouting and drying and stuff at home, 100% you can buy these things already sprouted. Nuts.com, I love nuts.com. You can order amazing quality nuts and seeds and beans and grains and dried fruit and all sorts of stuff. And they sell sprouted nuts, sprouted quinoa, sprouted lentils. So in our house, we buy that stuff a lot because it's like a quick, easy shortcut. Okay, well, thank you guys all for tuning in and listening. I hope you learned some good stuff. And again, I know that my information, my direct email, my website is just my name, sarahjanesandy.com. That's SarahJaneSandy.com. And I can put that down here in the chats. You can check out my website to get in touch with me directly. I have a contact page on there, or you can email me directly at Sarah@SarahJaneSandy if I can answer any follow-up questions. And I hope enjoy the rest of your cleanse. And yeah, good luck. Everyone's doing amazing. And that's it. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a great day. Yep. Bye, everyone.